this guy, Edgar Cayce, he's a well-known psychic. He brought the major fallacy to the popular so-called New Age movement. Nothing really good has come out of New Age movement. Nothing intelligent has really occurred there. It's basically a group of people channeling certain spirits to gain insight into psychic phenomena. Edgar Cayce doesn't do anything for me except he makes the Akashic Records coin term, which is defined by him completely away from any truth. So his readings are mostly incorrect. His locations of Atlantis and a lot of stuff is just because he had astral powers and he had occult powers, but he wasn't educated to use them without relying on a religious dogma. So a lot of the facts are skewed, so you can deduce that for yourself. Let's move on to another topic. What would be the next topic? ISIS Unveiled is a book by H.P. Blavatsky. That would be your introductory work to get into some more serious spirituality and also initiatory spirituality, which they labeled occult sciences. Maybe that term's been overused and played out in a derogatory way too much, so whatever you'd like to call it now, it doesn't matter. The meaning is the same. And it's esoteric. So if you're looking to get into that, more esoteric knowledge, because everyone's pretty sick and tired of the occult, and I am as well, because half of it, or maybe most of it's fake. The real stuff is like shamans, speaking to animal spirits, foretelling things like the future, using certain powers like that. But the occult stuff is totally washed. So they call it occultism. It could be called esoteric. It could be called Gnostic theogony. It could be called Hermetic. But it's not called theosophy anymore, because that's completely what would be the word, like blackwashed or something, or whitewashed, blackwashed. The next topic, so yeah, H.P. Blavatsky, Madame Blavatsky is good. A lot of lies are surrounding it because they used occult powers from her. She was basically like a fountainhead of resource. So the resources could have been used by the dark magicians. Not necessarily Crowley, but he kind of is heading in that direction. Although he really tried to find a new way. Sincerely, he did. I mean, I don't totally disrespect him, but in my opinion, I would never resort to any of his books. I basically stick to ISIS Unveiled, The Secret Doctrine, both by Blavatsky, and Raja Yoga by Swami Vivekananda. It's not a great book, but it does have Patanjali, which is the yoga aphorisms of Patanjali, which are both is good for regular yoga, and it's also excellent to assist you in occult science. So it kind of blends, and there is a point where it blends, it merges. So it merges there in Patanjali. Aleister Crowley Um, I've looked through most of his stuff. I've done several of his rituals. Like I did the entire geomancy ritual from Equinox. It's a place to work from, and besides that, with him and the Golden Dawn's influence, anyone that wants to have any impact would have to know their resource. So, and Eliphas Levi. So, I learned the resources of it, but I can't say that I follow the doctrine. There's many reasons why I personally don't, but also I try to be objective, in an objective way, if you think about it, and if you get a chance to listen to the audiobook of Isis Unveiled or read it for yourself, because I already knew the Bible in and out, so that helped, and I knew there was holes in it and secrets to it, and Blavatsky tells you how to really unveil those secrets, because it's all part of a big pyramid or stone of the pyramid. Each thing is just a little chipping block of that, like each belief system in the world is part of one major understanding or science, spiritual science. So, what else would there be that they would want to talk about? Alright, so if you think about it and you look at the stuff from Blavatsky and separate her from anything to do with theosophy post 1900, because that is like not fair to her to be associated with it at all. So isolate her from it. You can keep William Judge and Olcott, they're okay. And a few of the first people were okay. Mavalankar. But the point I'm getting at is, she said basically 100 years, 200 years, they're only going to get like 1/7 of the secret doctrine in the planet. The way it's going now, it looks like less than that, which is okay. There has to be a group of seers that are available. And from my research, I haven't encountered anyone that's an actual seer. Like Swedenborg, who was a seer. Blavatsky obviously was, on a high level. Because she went beyond clairvoyance to seership, to adeptship, which is kind of a step after step after step of being able to go to higher spiritual levels without floundering about it, by having a working knowledge of it from the Eastern school. So it's not that technical as it may seem, but it takes a while to do. And some people may be born with it. And in other words, if we really want to be able to figure out the past, we can no longer rely on a New Age teacher or someone that claims to know so much. For instance, Madame Blavatsky didn't ever say that she knew everything, because she's like me, kind of similar, spiritually similar, that I'm definitely connected to her spiritually, and I'm not going to get out here and put forth a dogma or a belief system or something that says this is the only right way. And so if we wanted to uncover the truths, like say of the pyramids and how they were built, which no one knows how they were built in the public now, in the world, as a public world. There may be secret people that do know it in the Far East, most likely. But everything, like I said with the extraterrestrials, it's up to us. It's up to us to elevate ourselves, but it's not going to happen very easily. I'm sorry, but it just isn't. And I mean, the reason is because you're up against the material realm in your body, in your mind, and in your thoughts. And the enforcement of meat eating, that's just more dense on your body. And with all the dogmas out there, including the false New Age dogma, and many others, and I'm not picking on them, but I could care less about it. It's mostly ego-driven, and it's the worship of strange spirits. Blavatsky didn't really worship any spirits or anything, and she didn't channel, and she wasn't a medium. She's more of a ancient magician or an ancient seer that happened to live in that time period, in late 1800s, the Victorian era. The world was a lot different then, but it hasn't changed. We're in the same civilization. And her predictions about the civilization and the social problems are still very accurate. So I can't suggest what you might want to do as far as reading her books, but I can tell you, for this new millennium, since I was a bookseller, I looked at thousands of books, especially occult books. I mean, you could name a subject on occult stuff, and I've probably read it. I've probably worked it out. So I've probably read it. So that doesn't mean I know everything, but I do a systematic approach, like a systematized alphabetical or elemental approach to the study. Not always was an easy path, and I'll get into some of those stories as we go along. So what other things would people say? I'd say the most important thing from what I've seen that we need to do is to get the ideas across about the true doctrines of old, how the Hindu, Aryan, and prehistoric people mixed with the Egyptians and the Andes cultures and the Far Eastern in a similar doctrine. I have proofs for this now because looking at a lot of strange artifacts, some of them are faked, some of them are real. The real ones are quite mind-boggling. But there's no other way that we're going to ever know what these things are except through accurate clairvoyance and not wishy-washy stuff. And that goes back to kind of saying, you can't just be a psychic, because there's not enough power, there's not enough ability to, you can't make believe that you're actually reading something. The Akashic records, it's no records. That's just the astral plane, but far above the normal amount. I would say it's 10 times beyond the average psychic channeler. Astralism is what brought theosophy downward. Alice Bailey, I think, from what I remember, mentions astralism in the Ledbetter work. He was a later theosophist. Charles Ledbetter. He's probably partly the reason why the Nazis used theosophy against the world, is because he was doing something wrong and was in the position to stop it. And it might have even been child molesting. and he used astral powers rather than true seership, true occultism, as they termed it. If you're trying to see where I'm getting at, maybe you could even consider it Magianism. It's the doctrine of nature and the relative pantheistic worship, if you will, of those gods. Gods being not necessarily men in white suits, but on a higher level, they are beings. So it's the worship of beings of all classes and types throughout the universe, without there being one central deity except for the central sun within us. So everything is considered part of the one whole. And so to finish up on this Ledbetter guy, none of his books are any good. I would just throw them in a fire pit tonight if you have any of them. Annie Besant might have wrote a few good books, but I don't really like it. I mean, the other thing about that is, now that we're in the new millennium, we can have a fresh start and look at these things a little bit more. It's not the only thing I want to talk about, but this is really a destiny for me. And it goes along with shamanism, at least European shamanism, because that might have been Tibetan or Mongolian derived. So there's a big circle of this planet, and all the ancient doctrines intertwined, because they're the Aryans, which were not necessarily white supremacists. There were a certain group of people of highly advanced culture that taught all the great cultures during the ancient world, and they're basically the masters of the planet, but they're not necessarily blonde haired or whatever. I can't even talk about that much because it's so lingering in the smokes of the past war, which was a while ago. But you have to see the doctrine in Blavatsky, and if something in it doesn't seem right, maybe it isn't right. I'm not claiming that everything she said is right. I'm claiming that it will, if you look between the words and really figure out what it means and work it out in your own soul, or spirit rather, then you will be able to accomplish something spiritually if you really don't give up and you try hard. And I use tarot, not Rider-Waite tarots, because they have a mixed up card and the symbolism is very stupid, purposely denying some of the true occult sciences, because there's a lot of things that can clash in the entity realm, things that want to interfere with the stuff from pagans rather than like soft pagans, you know, like something that's not really pagan. So you can judge me, but you could judge what I'm trying to get across, to see if it could actually help you in this video. And I'm gonna have some stuff to offer because I want to help you out, and I don't know, hook you up with stuff, free stuff, and some stuff I'd like to sell, like my art stuff. So let me think what else would be coming through here. So as far as like being in contact with certain beings, it's entirely plausible. And for myself, I have many stories about that. But once I start to mention it, the atmosphere changes, because these things stay in the mind, the astral light. And the more you work with it, the more condensed it can be around you, which is a good thing as long as you know what you're doing. And you have to kind of stay in the doctrines. So it's kind of a lifelong pursuit. I have no qualms with that whatsoever. I easily dedicated my life to it in 2009, if not subconsciously before that, but 2009, and 9 is a special number for me. That's when I really decided I would go all the way, because karma was leading me at it. It was no question I was destined to do this, to look for the secret truths. And there's some in the Bible, because the sources of the Bible, they could be from books we don't have, like the New Testament could be from books that we don't know about, where they plagiarized it, which is pretty lame, you know, to plagiarize a book and not give it credit. It's happened before, and it's probably happened again, because capitalism, or greed, or whatever you want to call it, monopolizing territories and things like that do happen. But they probably won't happen in the same way, not if we have individuals who can understand seership and be guided by the true light, and not be into this Lucifer, Satan, God, Jesus. None of that makes sense. The stuff that makes sense is Lucifer, Poseidon, Paracelsus. You know, it makes sense when you're not being led by confusion. And I really sincerely think you need Blavatsky. I think everyone kind of does that wants to get into occultism. But don't get into theosophy whatsoever. Do me a favor. Do everyone a favor and don't join theosophy. I just don't care for it at all.